On the podcast, Winston Peters questions whether we have too many immigrants coming into our country and too many of the wrong sorts of migrants arriving here. There it is. He's found his new target for next year's election. Do they all work? Do they accept the Kiwi way? Peters is questioning that, and he's been inspired by the man who might become the next UK Prime Minister, controversial Reform Party leader Nigel Farage. And I'm calling it, the government's new enrolment proposals for next year's election must be dumped. Get rid of them. They simply have to be ditched or changed. Hundreds of thousands of voters will likely miss out on voting if the government doesn't back down from this. It's undemocratic. We want more voters, not fewer voters. But does National? Of course not. Welcome to the podcast.
Are we paying these people to front up, or are we paying them to fly to Wellington to eat their lunch? Should you really lose your career for refusing to take part in a 90-minute lesson about Māori culture? This government doesn't actually have any idea how to get economic growth. Show us what you made of, Prime Minister.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan, Garner.
Okay, you're with the Editor-in-Chief. Nice to have you along. Evening, everyone. I'm Duncan, Garner. And please subscribe. Helps us stay around. We do appreciate it. Thank you so much. Hey, I got to 30,000. I'll talk about that a bit later. And I'll get to Winston shortly as well. But is this one of the most anti-democratic governments in recent memory? These latest proposals from the government that would stop late enrolments for next year's election must be dumped. We have until now allowed voters to enrol right up until the day of the election, so you can enrol on election day. But this government says it adds layers of complications and delays and takes too much time to count, and therefore delays any government being formed. So it's proposed these new rules, not just banning you enrolling on election day, but banning anyone from voting who isn't registered to vote 2 weeks out from the election. So there's a 13-day ban. So if you're not enrolled within 13 days of the election, you can't vote. A 2-week ban on late enrolment. So I think it's undemocratic. Attorney General Judith Collins sought advice from the country's top legal minds, and they say it's a breach of people's right to participate in an election and a breach of the New Zealand Bill of Rights. Here's your problem. Last election, I've dug out the numbers on this too. Last election, 603,000 New Zealanders enrolled in the last 2 weeks. It's a massive chunk of voters who would miss out under the current proposal National's got on the table. And we simply can't just change the law for no good reason. The government doesn't have a good reason. Those votes take 2 weeks to count. And that's not a good reason. It's not a good reason to change. The government argues it slows down the formation of the government. They're clutching at straws. That's not an argument. It's the politicians who take weeks in negotiations that slows down the government formation. Don't blame voters. It's crucial that people vote, and the more the better, and this proposed change from the government could see hundreds of thousands of Kiwis miss out, locked out. There's simply no good reason to make the change. Most people only engage in elections in the last few days. They're simply too busy to notice, so they must be given every chance to participate. This proposal's bad law, should be booted to high heaven. Yes, I know what National was up to. They're trying to stop Labour orchestrating a last-minute rush of new voters. That could swing, drop kicks, I think someone called them. They could swing the election at the last minute. Labour's always had good numbers on the ground, volunteers, and yes, it's always trying to get its voters to the polls and registered. But National, denying more than 500,000 voters the chance to vote, its proposal must be altered. Sure, no one can register on the day, maybe just change it there. So no one on the day, but there's no need for a 2-week ban on new enrolments in the lead up to the election day. It's ridiculous. People are only waking up to the fact there's an election on. You've got to give me every chance to register. National's proposal can barely hide how poor it is. It's corner-cutting, self-interest shocker, isn't it? Let's go.
It's the Slam Dunk.
Okay, Winston Peters is readying himself and his party to have a real good crack at National next election. Peters, this time, doesn't want to settle for, say, 6 or 7 or 8%. Peters wants 15% plus. He wants a bigger slice of the influence. He doesn't want to share the Deputy PM's role 50-50 with David Seymour. He wants to share the PM's job. So he needs a good election campaign. He's found the issue once again. It's an oldie but a goodie for him. He's once again targeting immigration. It's smart from Peters. It's no accident. It's carefully planned, and it shows Peters, who is now freed up from being the Deputy Prime Minister, he's got more time to plan his party's route back to Parliament. And immigration's been rampant into New Zealand last year especially. More than 250,000 people arrived in 2023 in just 1 year. But even take the last 2 years, and both saw record numbers arrive in the country. And immigrants from India flocked here in their biggest numbers ever. And for the first time, Indians were the largest group to arrive. More Indians than Filipinos, more Indians than Chinese. It's always been the other way around. It's always been Chinese, Filipinos first. But this time the Indians just flocked here. Is this good for New Zealand? Good question. And it's one that Peters is now asking. And I am too, because when you have 216,000 supposedly work-ready New Zealanders on the job seeker benefits, so 216,000 people on the dole ready for work. Why are we bringing in what might be perceived as a whole lot of cheap labour and giving someone from a faraway land the chance to not just take our job, but maybe take your mate's job as well, or your brother's, or your son's job? We haven't thought about this properly. 216,000 supposedly job-seeking Kiwis who now have to compete, just in the last 12 months, with 140,000 migrants who just arrived. Why are we making it so hard on ourselves to get work? Why bring in so many people when New Zealanders are out of work? When are we going to put our own selves first? Sadly, there aren't that many jobs right now. The economy is still in ICU and on life support. So people stay out of work. They stay on welfare. School leavers who used to walk into jobs from school are now going directly onto welfare upon leaving school. It's banned in Australia. It should be here too. Why pay welfare to a school leaver? Find a job, any job. Like the Aussies. What's the point of putting them through, 13 years of heavily subsidised education to then walk out the front gates when you're 17 to go into welfare? I would stop that. I'd ban welfare. You've got to get a job first. It doesn't help when the economy's spluttering. Then suddenly record numbers of migrants are on the doorstep, and they may have just taken your job. Peters sees the issue really, really clearly.
The drivers to take people from secondary school into employment aren't strong enough. Too many people are able to access social welfare without making every effort to get employment, to get jobs. How come we've got so many people who are so-called job ready but not in jobs?
Peters senses voters, especially in the big cities, are stressed by immigration. It's squeezing everyone. Our roads, our schools are chocker. We are poor planners. We bring in the masses. Then we piss around with funding, wondering, what is it that we should build now? Well, everything. We're behind. Every year we fall behind because we don't population fund. We slip further behind. We can't keep up with the size of the population. But Peters has taken it a step further, this time suggesting that newly arrived immigrants might just be taking Kiwi jobs. They're more flexible. They'll work 24/7. They'll have 3 to a bedroom, 4 to a bed. Whereas Kiwis are seen as too picky. We're too fussy, too lazy. And we don't want to work weekends and public holidays. These guys will. And this is far more serious, isn't it? If this is indeed the case. Anecdotally, people tell me how hard it is to get a job. One job recently in a New World attracted almost 2,000 applicants. The New World being set up in Point Chev. 3,000 applicants for 120 jobs. People are desperate for work. How many of those are new migrants? I bet you quite a lot. Peters has a nose for this. And I picked up this feedback. I'll put this up on the screen here. I picked up this feedback from the podcast over the weekend. And Peters will be hearing and seeing this sort of feedback too. So look at this. Immigration is the elephant in the room. It's out of hand and abused. I will vote the political party that stops it in its tracks. I didn't vote for the India party. Where are these jobs coming from? My son, 21, can't seem to get a job and will be going if things don't get better. So you see, so that becomes an issue for parents and grandparents who might now have to wave their son and grandson, daughter, granddaughter goodbye. See them off to Australia when ordinarily they may have stayed in New Zealand for a job. Peters will pull at the heartstrings on this. He'll play a couple of pronged attack on this. But he'll talk to the grandparents and the parents and make this a real issue at the next election. No parent wants their child to buy a one-way plane ticket to their future somewhere else in the world, but that's what's happening right now. Looking at the numbers, there were more Indians arriving in New Zealand last year than returning New Zealanders for the first time ever. 27,000 Indians in 1 year. And to give you some comparison, it was about 24,000 New Zealanders returned home. The Chinese arrivals into New Zealand was 16,000 and the Filipinos 15,000. So, and look, Indian New Zealanders have always come to New Zealand. There's always been a big Indian community in New Zealand. There's no doubt about that. It's just that this last 12 months is the first time that they have been the first or the largest group of people coming into the country. It's usually the Chinese. Peters also says many of the recent migrants bring their own cultures here and they don't respect ours, he says, and they don't respect our flag and our custom. And it leads to all sorts of issues for communities. Peters says the same is happening in the UK. And I think this is where Peters has picked up a lot of his stuff from his good friend, Reform Party leader Nigel Farage. They've discussed this, and I think this is where Peters is getting it from. Peters will just mirror image this guy. He's so popular. Farage is up in the polls. He may well end up being the Prime Minister of Britain. Certainly he's talking tough and not mincing his words.
We're actually facing, in many parts of our country, nothing short of societal collapse. If people are scared to go out of the shops, scared to let their kids out, that is a society that is degrading. And it's happening very, very rapidly. And perhaps the biggest pledge that we would make today is to say 30,000 more police over a 5-year term of a parliament. And we will scrap all diversity, equality and inclusion roles. And we will aim for a higher and physically tougher standard of police officer on our streets. I think that if criminals slightly fear the police, that is a desirable place for us to be as a society.
Now, it's pretty gutsy stuff, isn't it? And so he's up in the polls because he's talking like this. Peters says New Zealand society is changing because of mass immigration. So you can see where Peters is going. He's picked up on this Farage stuff. And he says that New Zealanders are really worried. And, well, Peters is picking up on this. If they're not worried now, he'll make them worried.
If you look around the world, this is an alarming development. You see in Spain, dare I say it, in Germany, recently in Ireland, many cities in England. People are concerned as to where their countries are going. And New Zealanders are no different.
So he's got his 2026 election campaign issue sorted. And he'll do well. We have not had a decent debate about our population size and where it's all going. Too many people are scared to be labelled racist. It's not racist to debate the future makeup of your country. It's negligent not to do it.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
Okay, I'll do some letters to the editor. Now we've lost our link to the big fella out of Christchurch, so I'll whip through this. Hi, Duncan. I loved your recent segment on a train service between Auckland, Hamilton and Tauranga. This got lots of feedback. I live in Europe and the train networks are amazing. They're a game changer and allow people to connect between regions and cities really easily. Here's a good example to illustrate. I can take a train from Brussels to Paris and pick either the 2-hour, 30-minute cheap version, prices vary, but about 40, maybe 50 euro for a ticket, or I take the Eurostar connection, which takes just over 1 hour, 312 k's an hour, can cost maybe 80 to 100 euro. There's choice in the market for consumers, and the best part is it's so bloody convenient. You travel from centre to centre, unlike planes, which take you to the periphery of the periphery to the periphery, don't they? Meaning you have to take another connection to get to the centre. That's true. It's amazing because I can go for business meetings in Paris, be home to sleep in my own bed the same day. It can even be cheaper to train back and forth rather than book a hotel in Paris. The costs will be huge if we do this correctly in New Zealand, and the government should be very open and blunt that it will cost a lot. Cheap half measures are not the solution. We need to be bold. Cheers. Thank you for that. But the other thing is we just don't have a European population base. We're talking about Tauranga, Hamilton, Auckland. So it needs to be fit for scale. You can't go there and put a Eurostar and a Euro track in there. We'd be overcapitalising. You've got to put something that is fit for purpose, New Zealand styles, without cutting corners. You still want to get there. You still want to get there within the day. Okay, that's us, folks. Thanks for your feedback and your support. Get in touch through our social media at Duncan Garner Podcast on TikTok and Instagram, or flick us an email, Duncan@Rover. We've cracked 30,000 subscribers, but because my link's down with Isaac, we'll celebrate this tomorrow, and I'll get ready to do some... I don't know how many I'll do because I've been crook, so I'll do some press-ups. Do you think I'd have to do 30, maybe? That's tough. Especially after I've been in hospital. Let me rethink about how I'll do something to celebrate it. But well done. We did 30. We've done 30k, which is 25 more than we had in February. So well done. Isaac, thank you, sir. And remember, life's no dress rehearsal, no curtain raiser. This is it. We live in one of the best places on earth. So get out and enjoy yourself. Never forget to smile. Have a great rest of the day. Take care, folks. Ta-da.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.